Welcome to the first in our series of Grassroots Spotlight videos, where we'll highlight the great work that's taking place out there on the ground around the country. Now, would you please welcome Louise from Northeast for Europe? Louise, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, as we record this today, it's the 21st and we're in Tier 4 lockdown, so it's a very strange time. But no, we're still keeping busy and there's a lot to do with the deal. So thank you so much for doing this. So I guess firstly, just tell us a little bit about Northeast for Europe, like a little bit about the group, like how you were formed, the sort of work you've been doing, that sort of thing.
So what we've been doing recently, so we, before all the Nissan stuff, we were very much supporting, the farmers and protecting the food standards. We did a lot of work with that in the summer. So both up here in the north, and also we did go to the big one in London, where I believe I bumped into you there, Scott. So we do try and take the protest from the northern angle down to London, or we did do one before the restrictions stopped it, because it does tend to get more press coverage. Up here, we've also been taking it to the high street. So we were in Hexham High Street, Sunderland High Street, because it's not just Nissan that'll be affected. It'll be things like just everyday shops. If, with the tariffs and getting goods in and out the country, our high street's going to be affected by that, along with COVID, obviously, as well. So we had been doing a lot of that. It has kind of switched onto Nissan more recently, because that is, the biggest pressing issue in this region anyway. And it does tend to attract a lot of press attention in a way that nothing else does.
Your focus has been on the Nissan plant, which is a huge employer and central to the community up there. And you've been focusing on the threats the Bad Deal Brexit posed for them. I mean, so how's that been going? I mean, what sort of activities you've been doing around that? How's it been going, sort of?
So we've done lots. The last one was on Friday, before we knew about this virulent strain. And we managed to catch, for the first time, we caught the shift changeover. And it felt like to us that because there's 6,000 people employed there, and it actually felt like we met all 6,000 people either coming in or going out. And it was to a sea of absolute, the most supportive honks ever. That our footage never quite captures that, but it was so overwhelmingly supportive. And, I know people get focused on what did people vote, what they didn't vote, but I think what we need to concentrate on is what they think now. And, I think a lot of them have realized that they were conned, and a lot of them didn't vote for it anyway. But it's what they think now, and now they're clearly massively supportive of what we're doing. They know what the risks are. It's not just a no deal scenario. It's also if they don't get a good deal. So they need zero tariffs, and currently WTO tariffs are 10%, and they said they won't survive on that. So we've kind of shifted it from no deal, no Nissan. It's also a bad deal, no Nissan as well.
You've been getting some great press coverage, both locally and nationally, haven't you, about the work you've been doing up there?
Yes. So we always focus with especially the local press, that, we are local residents, because some people have joined us since Northeast for Europe days. So it's true to say it's local residents. And I think the press particularly like that angle of it, and they've been very supportive. There's not one we've done where we haven't had good press coverage in the local media, but then also sometimes we have sneaked into the national press. So like we were discussing, the Express ran a story about our night vigil we did at Nissan, and it was a very sympathetic piece about, look at, this is not what the government promised. Even if you voted for Brexit, this is not what they promised. No one voted for Nissan to leave. And I was very pleased with that, because it was really getting out of the bubble. And it's people who normally follow our activities will have read that. And it was a very sympathetic piece. So that is kind of what we aim for, is to get that kind of angle, yeah.
One thing I have unfortunately noticed, there has been some backlash, hasn't there, on social media? People saying, well, Sunderland voted to leave. I mean, how have you been taking that sort of response on social media? Has it been getting in the way, or how have you been responding to it?
Well, as I said, it gets the videos on Twitter, the traffic, it gets them viewed many times. So, we will welcome that. But, we understand how people feel, because I mean, I'm from Sunderland myself, and I won't lie, in the first few months after the referendum, I was really upset and I was really angry. And I know where they're coming from, but I think it's important is because we've been out there talking to people, why did they vote? Like for 4.5 years now, why did you vote that way? We know that there was so many different reasons, and I'm not angry. Haven't been angry for a long time. I'm very much on their side and as someone sent me the other day, there was a very famous Vote Leave leaflet went round saying very specifically that Nissan would not leave if we Brexited. And I'd kind of forgotten about that leaflet. I do remember it coming through the door. And people can say, oh, well, I knew it was a load of lies. But I think there's something psychological about a physical leaflet, official leaflet coming through your door saying Nissan definitely will not close, that will think, oh, well, it must be true then. And Nissan actually, we're going to sue them for that because it was the opposite is true. You know, we know they didn't want Brexit. And also lots of people would say, oh, well, you know, I don't like David Cameron. And I remember getting another leaflet through the door from David Cameron saying vote Remain. And even I had one moment thinking, oh, I don't want to do something that David Cameron supports. But we're now 4.5 years down the line, and it's important what people think now. And I always remind people Sunderland didn't vote the highest Leave vote anyway. You got to think 40% of people actually voted to Remain. It's just we have this notoriety because of a certain woman jumping on the shoulders, celebrating, calling it first in Sunderland is why we have the notoriety, but we weren't nowhere near the highest Leave vote. And yeah, people always remind us of that woman bouncing on the shoulders, but on Twitter, and I just like to say we have seen it before. So
No, and you bring up a really important point there about message carriers. I think that's why it's really important that you've been focusing on the fact that your local people, regardless of whether you're from a campaign group, you are local people that are caring about the local community. I think that's a really, really powerful message. This has been such a difficult year for campaigners, but you mentioned press releases. What else have you been using to get that sort of traction in both the community and the press?
The press, I mean, again, the social media is so important. And, you know, you've been helping us with the videos, which is, you know, we get someone, you know, solid like yourselves behind us to help us retweeting it. Or as we know, once if you can get someone who's quite high profile, they've just got to retweet it once. So we've had, you know, sometimes it's been Alistair Campbell, or sometimes we've had Hugh Grant is one of our NE4EU followers, don't you know? And sometimes he has retweeted one, and it's all about, I mean, sometimes it is luck who has just retweeted it, or if you've hit right that week with the news about what you've done has just resonated. Sometimes it is just luck. But if you can, like, on social media, tag someone who you think's of gravitas to reach, who might retweet it, is always a good tip as well. Yeah.
And I think that's really important as well, that social media can, especially now that we can't get out there and campaign as much as we would have liked, is so important on that. So, yeah, I just before we finish, are there any final messages you might have for any people out there about getting involved in local groups, or for any local groups who might be wanting to get things going? And just any final messages to close off?
The message is that there is always something you can do. While this new strain of COVID may mean we can't protest or campaign in person for a while, we can always get involved in other ways. So like sharing digital campaigns, lobbying MPs, collecting local stories of the impact of Brexit in your local paper. Just check what the restrictions are before you do anything, would be my advice. So keep up the morale of your group and get involved in non-physical campaigning, and take each week as it comes.
Thank you so much, Louise. The European movement is a people-powered movement with more than 120 branches and local groups all across the country who are at the centre of everything that we do, driving forward both our campaigns and their own local initiatives in their communities. Now, whether it be a local lobbying campaign, citizens' rights outreach work, community campaigns, local initiatives that seek to highlight a local story at a national level, or something else, there's so much great work taking place out there, which we're incredibly grateful for. And finally, I'm going to show you some footage from Stephen, who's a former Nissan worker, explaining why the Nissan plan is central to the community in Sunderland and why a no deal Brexit or a bad deal Brexit would really affect the local community.
Now what you can't see, which I can, just over the front of me to my right, is Nissan. And a no deal Brexit or a poor deal would be catastrophic for this town, which is already marginalised. And with the recent news that Cornwall, which is another deprived area, is set to be allocated only 5% of a £700 million budget which they would have had through EU funding, that doesn't bode well for my community, our community. A bad deal or a no deal Brexit just can't be allowed to happen. And with this current government already backtracking on the funding which it's allocating to regions such as Cornwall, this is a time where we have to press forward and make sure that people's livelihoods, people's communities and the social fabric of our towns and cities are kept. What else is on the horizon for this great industrial city? As you look off to the horizon and to Nissan over there, this is the heartbeat of our community, and we simply can't let that be in any way jeopardised.